Taiwan is a relatively small country. You can get from the country's north to the country's south in just a matter of few hours on the high-speed rail. However, it is also home to a map of winding rivers, 6 different ecosystems, and a mountainous east coast. So today, we're going to be diving into Taiwan's diverse landscape with Alex Kunz, a geologist who spends his time mapping and visualizing the country's geography and data. Alexander Kunz, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me here.
So I want to start off asking, how did you get into geology? What captured your imagination about geology?
So first of all, I just studied geology and worked as a geologist here in Taiwan, in National Taiwan University. And so during my time, part of my work was anyway mapping or data analysis and all these things. And I always was kind of interested in that. And I wanted to, just to share more about this to general audience, to normal people. A little bit more than 1 year ago, I started to be more active with that on social media. But the other reason was also for me, because content about Taiwan is very focused on politics, then travel and food. So this is basically the 3 areas. This is what everybody's doing. But I wanted also to do something different. So in the beginning, I didn't expect much. I just thought, okay, this is some weird, nerdy project, and I post a few things, nobody wants to see it. Surprisingly, a lot of people actually see it and like it. So it's actually getting bigger and bigger now.
Now, you shared you came to Taiwan about 15 years ago. Before you came to Taiwan, was there any preconceptions that you had about the country's geology that took you by surprise?
For me, the most surprising thing about the geography or geology is the diversity in Taiwan. So you have actually everything. You have beaches, you have high mountains, you have almost tropical beaches in the south, you have steep cliffs, you have volcanoes. There's actually for everyone, there's something in Taiwan, and everything squeezed onto a tiny island, and that's actually something super fascinating here.
You mentioned that you've done some research into the declining birth rate. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw in that data?
Yeah, that was quite interesting because we all know Taiwan has a super low birth rate that pops up every time in the news or on some other posts or maps or something. But you don't realize how low it actually is, because there's this number, I think like 0.9% or something below 1. But I feel it doesn't tell you anything. You don't know what does it actually mean. And when you visualize the data, just simply the number of births every year, and then you see suddenly the super strong decline, especially since the 80s. And now it's, I think, even below 100,000 or so. And the crazy thing is, when you compare it with the death rate in Taiwan, so how many people are passing away each year, in 2019, there was the intersection. So that means now more people pass away than are born. So now we have negative growth. And actually, that's a topic people don't really talk here. I think when it comes up, then everybody's kind of, oh, yeah, you're right. And everybody's kind of a little bit shocked about this. So birth going down, more and more people passing away, and it's not closing. And it's really, even if you see the numbers and the graphs, you can see it's going like that now.
I think you brought up something important there, because you said that 0.09%, but that's really hard for people to understand how low that is. Do you think there's something really important to people seeing the data visualized in a way that helps them understand the significance of these numbers?
Yeah, that's also part of my goal, just simply to show a graph or a map, just that people can actually just see it. Because sometimes you hear the numbers without any relation. You don't know what it means. Like if I say, oh, there are 1 million foreigners living in Taiwan, okay, it's just a number. You don't really know much about this. But if you split it down from which areas they are coming, and you suddenly see the whole distribution, it looks totally different suddenly. Or like with birth rates, it's super low. What does it mean actually? There's still lots of kids on the streets. It doesn't feel like it's low, but if you then suddenly see these graphs going really down like this, then you realize how low it is actually.
When you're looking at the country's geology and all of the different ecosystems in Taiwan, what part of that has really caught your imagination? Or what part stood out to you the most?
Okay, since I'm a geologist, there's nothing really big surprising to me. I think one part that stands out is about earthquakes here. One, the frequency, how many earthquakes we have, and also that almost all earthquakes are focused on a very small area. So it's the Hualien, Ilan areas, so basically East Coast. Most of them, they are weak, you don't feel them. But the good thing in Taiwan is because we have so many earthquakes, so there's the tension which is building up in the earth crust, is constantly released. So the risk for very, very strong, very disastrous earthquakes is relatively low in Taiwan. So you can imagine in front of the East Coast, the Pacific plate is going under Taiwan, and this is kind of friction. It's always basically stuttering once in a while, and it's moving like a jigsaw, moving slowly. It would be much worse if it got stuck for 20 years and then suddenly with one big move will move. Then we would have really heavy earthquakes here.
Are there regions that are more populous? Because the East Coast, it's not as populous as the North and the West Coast. Although there's not as many big earthquakes in the North, is there still a risk to Taipei about any potential large earthquakes or fault lines?
I mean, the risk is everywhere in Taiwan. So East Coast is the most prominent area, but we also have big fault lines going on the west side. So like in south, I think it's if you remember Gigi, the big Gigi earthquake, that's near Taichung actually, this area is also active. It's not as frequent, but it's active. It's actually quite dangerous area because since it's not so frequent, the pressure can build up. So there's a risk for strong earthquakes in that area. Taipei has fault lines. They're also not very active. That's also a bit risky. And in Taipei, we have the volcanoes, Yangmingshan, Datongshan. And that makes it actually a little bit more dangerous here because these volcanoes it's not 100% clear, people debate, but it seems that they're still active.
Now, the other large natural disaster risk that Taiwan faces is typhoons. And this season, there was quite a number of typhoons in 2025. Can you talk a little bit about how Taiwan's geology and maybe are there areas that are more at risk for typhoon impact than other areas?
Not really. So if you look at historic data, then basically any corner of Taiwan was hit by a typhoon. So that's randomly distributed over Taiwan over the time. Of course, East Coast is a bit more exposed because the typhoons, they come from the east, then move to the west, so they usually hit East Coast mostly. So that's the first impact they have. I think East Coast is also a bit more vulnerable because of the high mountains. Typhoons, usually with the strong rain, they can trigger landslides. I think we had this severe flooding in Hualien in summer from a typhoon.
So looking at the natural disasters in Taiwan, are there areas that are more at risk or vulnerable due to soil erosion, liquefaction of the soil, or these factors?
Generally, East Coast is vulnerable just simply to the topography there with the steep cliffs, high mountains, and the frequent earthquakes and typhoons hitting this area. But also the West Coast is also not really safe. I know from Taipei, for example, you have areas that have a higher risk for soil liquefaction. So when an earthquake occurs, that the water in the soil will be shaken up and it becomes too soft and cannot support the buildings. There's also flooding risks in Taipei, especially the area around Geelong River, Songshan Airport. It's now not that extreme anymore because of they changed the rivers. They cut the rivers off to reduce to make the water flow faster. But they are still, so like if sea level would rise, these areas would flood quickly. I think South Taiwan is also a bit in danger due to sea level rise and flooding. We have often floods already in Pingdong area. Kaohsiung has a lot of floods that will increase with rising sea level.
Now, you've visualized a lot of your maps. What are some of your favorite maps that you have visualized?
I personally like the map where I have the river network of Taiwan, because that looks very nice, how the rivers go to the west and east, and how the shape Taiwan pops out from the rivers. The same is also for the road map I made recently, where you also see that the road network is so dense that it really redraws the whole island, even the small islands you can see.
With that redrawing of Taiwan, and in the middle is, because I think people look at Taiwan and they see the west coast and the east coast, they're not really familiar with the middle section. Can you talk a little bit about what the middle part of Taiwan is, and do we actually get snow in Taiwan?
So the middle part is the high mountains, which go up to more than 3,000 meters, almost 4,000. Yeah, that's usually the part that is left out. So every time you see like population density map of Taiwan or like the road network map, there's always this long stretch in the middle, which is empty, or kind of empty. Yeah, that's the high mountains. And of course, due to the terrain, nobody's living there, and there are also almost no roads. And that's also the only area where we can have snow in Taiwan. So we just recently had some snow in the high mountains. And that's happening, I think, every winter. So you see the wind speed.
Kunz is now going to walk me through how he analyzes data and designs his maps, starting with tracking Chinese military incursions into Taiwan's air defense zone, or ADIZ.
So the first thing is the source. There's only one data source for that. It's the Ministry of National Defense. So we can go to their website.
Data in Taiwan is, for the most part, open source, meaning he just needs to find the information on an official website to use it.
So they have their own map. It usually looks like this. So this is what they release. A lot of people just take this one and share it. But since we want to do the monthly overview, so the first thing is we, of course, have our table.
Kunz uses QGIS, which is also an open source tool. GIS stands for Geographic Information System, meaning a program that interprets data and geospatial coordinates onto maps.
But I do it a bit more complicated with the GIS system because I want to add additional information to each area. For now, we don't need that, but maybe later we can do it for some analysis or so. So the first step is to get it geo-referenced. That means we assign the real coordinates to that image. And conveniently, they already print the coordinates onto the map, so we can I already saved them before because the map never changes. So when the Ministry of Defense releases these maps, do you think that they're pretty accurate to where the PLA planes or ships appeared compared to the map, or are they just putting general locations? They're putting general locations. You can actually see that these are, I can zoom in a little bit, these are just big rectangles. And the only thing they tell you is that in this big rectangle, so that's number 2, there was one support aircraft. But you don't know exactly what it did in this area. If it was just making a circle here, or how many times it was there, they don't tell you. In the past, the data was more detailed. They actually really showed the track, the path of the airplane. They also wrote what kind of airplane it was, so you could really know what type of it was. Now it's very, very general data. They only write it's a fighter, it's a bomber, it's a drone, but you don't know what kind of fighter jet it is, what kind of bomber, what kind of drone that is. Next, we take a look at typhoon data. So these are all the typhoons that occurred in the Pacific since 1950. And this is color-coded, so the purple one is more the higher intensity. So they're more, and you see they're usually around this area where they get the highest intensities usually. We see that all of Taiwan has been affected by typhoons multiple times. And then if you zoom in, you see all these ones that since 1950 crossing Taiwan, and you actually can see that there's no single area that was not affected. While climate change is changing the rate at which typhoons occur, this historic data is a reminder that while our geography might be diverse, all of Taiwan needs to be prepared for what could come in typhoon season. Alex, thank you very much for joining us today. Yeah, thank you for having the chance to be here and share my work. This has been Zoom In, Zoom Out. Leave a comment below on what maps you would like to see from Alex next. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this on our YouTube channel and Taiwan Plus News. You can also follow us on our social media. Until next time.